This is In Touch with Terry, a power-packed podcast for the medical aesthetics industry.
I just discovered your podcast, and I feel like I've hit a gold mine.
This is someone who's got a lot of knowledge. She's been there, done that.
Terry Ross is a former Fortune 500 executive, international speaker, founder and co-CEO of Apex Platform, and Terry Ross Consulting.
Just listening to her energy and her passion and just how hardcore she is.
Her knowledge of the industry and just her connections in general are phenomenal.
In Touch with Terry will bring you solutions to increase operational and employee efficiency and practice profitability. Plus, features some of the top industry experts as guests.
The Apex team literally changed the game for us.
Terry, your courses and your podcast are just so helpful.
She made me feel like I could do this.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Now, here's Terry.
Hello, everyone. How are you? And welcome back to another episode of In Touch with Terry. Thank you so much for tuning in, for subscribing, and for listening, sharing all of the great things that you do. I wanted to talk today about what you should expect from your practice manager. This is a topic that I hold very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about. I think that the role is paramount to the success of any practice. And this episode is going to be a little different because I really would like to share some of my background with you. Many of you know, some of you might not know. Me having the opportunity to be a managing partner of a medical spa in Beverly Hills, not having that experience, coming from Fortune 500 as a VP of sales, but more importantly, that I was tasked to be a partner taking over an underperforming medical spa, but having to hire a manager, and the things I've had to learn and why I wanted to bring this episode to you today, because I think that having now consulted with practices for the past 12 years, working with hundreds of them, being inside the practice, looking at each role within the practice, that despite my success as a consultant for so many years, I really believe in my heart of hearts, and now obviously being the founder and co-CEO of Apex Platform, that one cannot go without the other. I'd like to believe I'm Mother Teresa. That's my real name, by the way, but I'm not. And it really takes a strong leader to manage a practice. And without that, there's always going to be challenges. And so despite identifying areas of opportunity or weaknesses or where there's room to grow, if the practice manager is not set up for success, if there's not the right expectations, if there's not the right accountability, if there's not the right training, it's going to affect the overall profitability and the overall success of the practice and the team. So I really wanted to dive in today and talk about some cultural traits that I think a practice manager has to have, but really kind of get down and dirty a little bit with expectations and why I was able to take this medical spa in Beverly Hills that was underperforming, about $500,000, by the way, hire the right manager, eventually hire the right team, up to 11 people, and what that took and what you cannot afford to sacrifice. And so when we think of our practice, so if you're an owner, again, you've chosen to be an entrepreneur, which means you have to care about not just your patient outcomes. Of course, we want good results, but what are the fundamentals that go into owning a practice? You know, your team is your greatest asset or your biggest expense. And so without understanding what you expect of them, what training are you going to provide for them? What are you going to invest in their education? What is it that you expect from your goals and a forecast and managing to a budget and understanding your revenue per hour and industry benchmarks? You have to know those things as an owner to be able to articulate what you expect of your practice manager. Otherwise, you know, we show up for work, we do our job to the best that we think we know how to do it, but are we really maximizing your capacity? And are you inspecting what you expect? Because if you don't know, how are they possibly going to know? And this is where I truly believe that it's so vital. And I think that one of the things, if I can kind of dive into my story, is that I was hired to be a consultant in 2013 for a medical spa in Beverly Hills, owned by 3 surgeons and a derm, key opinion leaders, by the way, in the heart of Beverly Hills, one of the most competitive places in the country. And as I mentioned, I was not a consultant before, and I never worked within a practice. I did come from working with Medicis, which is Galderma, and Zeltiq, which is now Allergan. And so I had sales training for 16 years. I led teams again in Fortune 500 device companies for many, many, many years. So I had leadership, I had business acumen, I knew aesthetics, I led teams to the top 10%. I had that behind me. But if I didn't, I probably would have failed. And I still had to learn a lot. I remember sitting in the first AmSpa meeting, gosh, when they were really first starting, because I had to learn the things I did not know. How could I take on a level of responsibility to be a managing partner, but not even understand what I was supposed to do? But my own internal drive and innate ability about myself is that I wasn't willing to fail and I wasn't willing to not know. That makes me vulnerable, not knowing things. And therefore, I had to get out of my comfort zone. And I also had to prove myself that I was able to take on the task of what it required to not just be a managing partner, but how was I going to get the respect of a team? How was I going to hire people that would want to actually listen to me and learn from me if I didn't know what the hell I was doing in the first place? So I remember hiring a manager who to this day is a dear friend of mine. She's a soul sister. She's family. And we didn't even work in the same building. And I want to talk about a couple of traits that I wasn't willing to overlook. And I want you to think about these traits when you're thinking about the manager. So if you are listening to this podcast and you perhaps are a manager, I want you to push yourself because it's such a fruitful position, and there's so much credibility and knowledge and expertise and joy that can come from being in this role because you're paramount to the overall success of the company, whether it's the patients or your team. And so we really want to think about somebody who is driven. They are a self-starter. They're resourceful. They are a leader and can earn the respect of hiring front desk or hiring providers that have to listen to the manager, by the way, right? That has to be earned. They're able to develop a culture of trust and communication. They're also coachable, right? I always say, like, good leaders don't know everything. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You learn from others. They have an analytical mindset because without understanding the data, which means you have to get very good at understanding your practice management software, how it works, the ins and the outs, what data can you extrapolate from it, what goes in it, why are you putting it in there that way? Is it going to give you the reports and the information that you need? That you understand what the benchmarks are in the industry so that you can achieve your maximum potential and capacity. Otherwise, you're frankly just in the dark because you don't know what you don't know. Someone who's a problem solver, effective communication, who can run meetings and value the point of having a meeting. I mean, without a meeting, how do we know where we're going? It's just like getting in your car without navigation. I don't have a direction. And I remember hiring this girl who had a marketing background and she was wanting to go into nursing and she wasn't quite sure, but she loved the space. And she's so funny. She's just like, you're a beast of an interviewer. And I'm not an easy interviewer, but there's something innately that you just have to trust in people when they position themselves to you as being capable, but more importantly, literally willing to put it on the table. Because I'll say this later on in the podcast, working in aesthetics is not a 9 to 5 job. If you want to check in and check out, then you should get out because it's not for you. We're dealing with many people that are high class, high end celebrities. They want after hours, they want morning appointments, they want weekends, or just our everyday consumer because this business is growing so much that we have to be in it with a customer centric mindset, number one. But then what goes along with that? We have to, again, understand what is going to make your practice different. It's not just somebody who had some management skills somewhere who can come in, because learning aesthetics is not just learning the medical piece of it, right? Meaning every surgery, every laser, every injectable, every competitor, every piece of retail inventory. I know it sounds daunting, but when I teach on the sales training perspective, this is where so many things are lost and revenues lost, because if you don't know as a manager and then you're trying to coach your team, if I call the practice and I'm like, "Hi, do you offer Althera?" but you have 5 other pieces of information or the other lasers and not that one, but your front desk girls say, "No, I don't," click buy, we've lost what, $3,000? So when we talk about the 7 steps to a successful multi 7, 8 figure business, they're all literally in this ecosystem of work that we can't afford to neglect any one of those 7 steps, because one feeds into the other. And this management level of responsibility requires a person to be like, I'm all in. I'm all in to do work at home. I'm all in to study after hours. I'm all in to learn these procedures, these surgeries. I'm all into role play. I'm all in to be coached. I'm all in to seek expert advice or help if that's what you think you need to get your practice to the next level. Because sure, mediocrity is there. But I know that people being in this business don't want to be mediocre, and it's hard to find good talent. More importantly, it takes a level of a person's own deep desire to want to be that good, to not want to be just average. But it also takes the owner, physician owner, business owner, whatever it is, to say, you know what, this is the shit that I expect from my manager. Because while you're in the room making money or in surgery making money, someone has to run this ship. And running it requires time commitment. It requires work to be put in. It requires analysis of information. It requires the ability to identify a strategy or to seek areas of opportunity and say, I'm not willing to not hit these revenue per hour benchmarks. I'm not willing to do discounting. I'm not willing to not charge a fee. I'm not willing to accept clients nickel and diming me. But you are willing to say, look at what is our perceived value? What's our brand recognition? What kind of people do I hire? What do I expect of them? Are they going to just be bitching they want more money all the time, that they're not willing to take training courses after hours because that's not fair? I mean, come on. If this is your job, your position, you are important. You are an important contributor to the overall growth of the company. So, I want to dive in now. And you know that's my story. I ended up hiring this girl who again was with me for almost 5 years. She went on to be promoted. Basically the med spa sold, by the way, to a big humongous change. So very successful for us. Again, we started with 2 people. We ended up with 11. We got it to almost $4 million, very successful. And I could not have done it without her. I mean, she was literally my ride or die. And I trusted every single thing that she did, leading a team, managing a team, holding meetings, holding monthly morning huddles, looking at the business and finding areas of opportunity so that we were not like everyone else. And that is what it takes. That is what it takes. Somebody that you can trust and someone that your team is going to respect, because that is what it takes. Again, we're not just in it to provide the best outcome. Yes, that's number one thing, but we have to get patients to be coming back. We have to provide 5-star Ritz-Carlton 4 Seasons experience. We have to be able to retain and, more importantly, ignite or want other providers or team to come work for you, because the culture that you breed is such where it's motivating and people can learn and elevate their career by given these areas of opportunity. And that, you guys, is what makes a difference. Again, we can get into the semantics about the website and your inventory and your lasers and your marketing and your CRM and your PPC and all these other external factors that you must have 100%. But all of that stuff doesn't matter. It's all noise. It will not matter if your front desk team can't convert the callers, if your manager isn't equipped to understand how to interpret data, What should I be looking for? Do I listen to the phone calls? How do I coach my team? Do I know how to do a consultation? Can it convert? What are my retention? How often do people come back? How often do people return for something different? What is the lifetime value? What is it they spend? Why don't they come back? I could go on and on and on about the fundamental problems that most every practice faces. And sadly, it's just because, and I say this often, there's no school. There's no MBA school you go to learn how to run a business, not even in medical school, which is again how Apex platform was born and developed. And it was born and developed out of my team and I really taking an opportunity in COVID to look at how we were helping practices as consultants doing the work and how, more importantly, could we impact more lives, reach more audiences, help more people, and give them the tools, the training, the foundation, the on demand analytics, the support to help practices be better. Period. We want to help practices be better because there's only two other things you could do. You can go to a conference, take your team, spend, I don't know, 6, 10 grand, lose 30 or more because you have to shut your practice down, come back with some notes and hope to God somebody can execute. But do they? I mean, do they really? And then are you inspecting that? Like what do you expect? What happens when you come back from a conference? Because if we're lacking the leadership or we're lacking the training or we're lacking what it is that we expect of our manager, this is such an area of opportunity. And I know managers in this position are seeking help. They reach out to me. They follow us on our Aesthetic Insights group and they comment on this podcast. And I'm so happy and humble that people genuinely want to be better at their position. And I admire and respect anybody who raises their hand to say, you know what, I don't know it, but I want to learn it and I'm willing to do the work because nothing for free, right? Nothing's for free. Anything worth it takes time and commitment and work. So I want to leave us with this. There are 5 crucial traits that, in my opinion, I think make up any successful practice manager. And number 1, obviously, it is skill set. Skill set, understanding the industry, having the ability to learn the industry, but more importantly, have leadership mentality that they're able to earn the respect of their team. They're able to do some hard things, right? To make hard decisions, to stand by what they believe. And that can go in any area, whether it's choosing the right software, picking a new piece of equipment, getting a new piece of inventory or retail, coaching the team on, again, conversions or consultations where we know we can improve. But they have to be able to do it first, right? They have to be able to do it first so that I've earned the respect. So if you coach me, I want to believe you. So the knowledge and the skill set of what it requires, I think, is number 1. Number 2, I think being open-minded. A practice manager wears many hats. As I said, there's no one straight line to get to the outcome you're looking for. And it requires somebody being flexible, having the ability to be agile, having the ability to change and get uncomfortable, but be open-minded to those possibilities. Number 3, they must have self-awareness of what's going on around you, right? What's going on around you with the patients, what's going around you with your owner and your team. So what is the vision? It must be circular. It's not linear. And oftentimes linear causes us to just think step by step and we're stuck in the motion because we can't get out of what's happening today. We can't see the opportunity. So the position is to be able to utilize, again, your skill sets, your resources to drive opportunities. You are a leader, not a controller. Number 4, there's no room for mediocrity. There's just not. There's a lot of positions out there that are just a 9 to 5. You clock in, you clock out, you get your paycheck, and I'm out. And that's fine. There's so nothing wrong with that. But complacency and mediocrity have no space in an aesthetic practice, frankly, in no job. But it should not be accepted, right? And the driverness, again, the competitiveness, the willingness, that is what's needed for this job. So practice managers have to eliminate environments and people that settle for less. Again, there's no room for it. Number 5, having an executive presence, having a strong presence. Nobody likes a weak leader. Let's be honest, nobody is going to take order from somebody that they don't trust, that they don't respect, and that they don't think would do the job even if they can't. And I'm not saying be forceful or aggressive or controlling. That's not a good leader. Leaders lead. Leaders lead by example. And they lead with clarity, they lead with expectations, and they lead, again, by building a team around them so that the sum of the culture is one. Number 6, striving for significance, right? Not just success. Oftentimes we get wrapped up in success. And what does that actually mean? The money, right? What you made that day? What if you could have made double that day? It's really looking at the bigger picture. It's striving to be your best and do your best every day, to strive for significance, because that environment breeds a culture of accountability where everybody can reach new heights and new goals. So I'm going to recap really quick my 6 tips. That is, again, having skill set, a culture, a leader mentality, being open-minded, having a strong self-awareness, not accepting mediocrity, having a strong executive presence, striving for significance, not just success. So I hope that you found this podcast valuable. I hope that you appreciate my story. Whether you are a manager yourself, you are a business owner, you're in the process of hiring a manager, or you want to become one, I hope that you can listen to this podcast, let it sink in, let it resonate with you. If you are struggling in any way, shape, or form because you're in the position now and you're like, God, I'm stuck and I could be better and I want to be better and I don't know what action to take, I'm inviting you to reach out to me personally. Again, you can DM me at Terry Ross Consulting, Instagram. You can join our Facebook Aesthetics Insights group. And I would really, really love to hear from you because there is greatness to be had. So thank you so much for this episode of In Touch with Terry. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. I'll see you soon, guys. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to In Touch with Terry. We invite you to schedule a discovery call with our Apex team. The link to apexplatform.com can be found in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of In Touch with Terry.